Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. It's a pleasure to be able to present for you today on Lerner's chapter, Writing is a Way of Enacting Disciplinary. That's my baby crying in the background. So let's jump into it.
I was having a conversation with my wife the other night about how I personally find some of these academic papers a bit dull to read. Not so much in terms of the content, which I do really find interesting, but strictly in the way that many of them are written. They are a far cry from the fiction and film writers that I've been engaging with over the last couple decades. My wife reminded me that the audience for different types of work dictate how that work is produced, and that's essentially what this chapter is about. 100 people might find a particular poem beautiful, but they also might have 100 different interpretations of what that poem means. Whereas the thesis of a paper about T.S. Eliot, if written effectively, should be understood by all the other experts of Eliot's work. The language being used for a group of experts is created by and for those experts. Lerner uses the example of how different disciplines use citations to show what those disciplines and authors might value. Let's use his own text and thesis as an example. The central claim of this threshold concept is that disciplines shape, and in turn are shaped by, the writing that members of those disciplines do. On the left side of the page, we cite this central claim with a date, and on the right, a page number. The author, in this case, myself, can use either method of citation to draw attention to whether the views should be in a historical context or whether the views are timeless and universal. As you can imagine, the sciences tend to use APA citations that use date, while humanities might use MLA with page numbers. The ways in which these different disciplines use citations can tell us a lot about what those disciplines value. This, of course, extends beyond citations and into the language and form that writing takes within each discipline. As Lerner states, the experimental report in science has evolved over several hundred years into the IMRD format: introduction, method, results, discussion, an organizational scheme meant to mimic the scientific research process, particularly as that process has become more codified. In contrast, while a short story also has specific features meant to function in specific ways for a specific disciplinary audience, readers would be hard-pressed to confuse a short story with an experimental report. Many distinct disciplinary genres, e.g. legal briefs, soap notes, mathematical proofs, reflect the values those disciplines assign to particular kinds of evidence, particular forms of argument, and particular expectations for the transaction between readers and writers in a particular rhetorical situation. I think a particularly interesting example of this can be seen in one of my absolute favorite writers of all time, Isaac Asimov. Not only did he pen many incredible genre-defying works of science fiction, like the Foundation series, but few people know that he also wrote a rather large number of scientific papers with titles like The Human Brain, Its Capacities and Functions, and A Short History of Biology. While I've only read small snippets of these more scientific works, the language, pacing, and style is very obviously different from his fiction. It is true that his writing changes to fit the discipline and intended audience. Another example of this can be seen in A Game of Thrones. Originally a book, then a screenplay, then a television show, we can see how each of these subgenres have their own method of conveying the first scene of the story. The writing changes not only in form, but by the time we get to the final edit, even the scene has changed to some degree. All of this has been dictated in large part to meet different audience expectations: the book reader, the producer network, and finally the show watcher. Lerner wraps up the essay by reminding us that while writing within disciplinary norms is a thing, it is by no means fixed or monolithic. Boundaries can be fluid within disciplines, and norms can change over time. This only furthers Lerner's central thesis that not only do different disciplines write in different ways, but that the ways these disciplines are written is defined by the writers themselves. So what do I think? Well, as usual, my wife is right, and so is Lerner. However, as much as I agree with Lerner in a general sense, that a scientific paper on gamma rays and a thesis on post-process theory ought to differ in style, I think there is a danger in becoming so esoteric that it can limit the scope and reach of one's writing. The fact that I picked up relativity in high school and could understand most of the concepts is truly remarkable. Much like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Carl Sagan, the gift of communicating scientific concepts in plain language to the masses of people unfamiliar with science may be as valuable as the science itself in some regard. This idea should probably translate to all writing, reaching larger audiences beyond the discipline. With that being said, by keeping the boundaries fluid and changeable, I think that Lerner would probably agree with my very slight criticism here.
I enjoyed working on this very short presentation on a very short essay, and I hope that you all found it valuable. I'm looking forward to listening to all of your responses, and take care.